G'day, welcome to the Noob Spirit Podcast. I am the show's host, Isaac, aka Shrek. Today's episode, Death Pile Phenomena, or the Dock of Death photo discussion. Hugely controversial. I really want to just get straight into this. I co-hosted this with Simon Trippe. I started off thinking about death piles and wanted to have this discussion in a long form as usual, because I think sometimes the bite-sized communication on social media is lackluster, to put it best. So here is a much longer form discussion with multiple interviews from multiple perspectives about dock of death photos or death pile phenomena. And hopefully this will just get you thinking about it. I know it's probably going to get some hate, might get some love, maybe, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. If you do want to get involved in the discussion though, jump on Noob Spirit Community on Facebook. There will be a thread up about this. I'd love to hear your thoughts about death piles or dock of deaths. Reach me there. Anyway, let's hook in straight into this episode that it was good enough to co-host with Simon Trippe, really well-known and regarded Spearo from Sydney. Here we go. This extra special episode of the Noob Spirit Podcast has been sound designed and edited by Brandon Swanapole. Thank you, Brandon. Let's get into it. All right, Noob Spirit community, welcome to the show. Today's episode is very different from normal. It's more of a sort of a documentary style episode about dock of death photos, or death pile phenomena, as we sort of call it in the Southern Hemisphere. Dock of death is more of a North American type thing, but we're going to sort of interchangeably use both of those terms today. But I invited legendary Australian Sydney Spearo Simon Trippe along with the show. He's been teaching people to spearfish for years, and we've had him on the show a couple of times before, so it's fantastic to have you back, Simon.
Thanks, Shrek. Mate, how are you?
I'm good. I'm not diving as much as I'd like to. I had bloody hay fever for 8 or 9 days, and that sort of stopped me from going to the gym, stopped me from getting in the water. And one of my mates texted me the other day and said, "You want to go diving on Sunday?" I'm working the full weekend, Murphy's Law. What about you?
Oh, bummer. I've been doing lots of diving, so Sydney's been fantastic. Look, I think we've had over summer, 6 weeks. December was just sublime, and the first few weeks of January, really the first 2-3 weeks of January, every time I went out was great. I've been in the water, 20, 25 times. It's been, over that period, it's been sensational. So lots of courses I've been doing, lots of guys are benefiting from the great conditions, and I'm seeing lots of great fish being caught. So it's been good. It's been really enjoyable, mate.
I read you a post of yours on social media. You were saying unseasonably good viz.
Yeah. Look, in Sydney, we come off the back of spring that sees the wind direction change in the 4 directions in 4 hours practically. So it can get muddy and stirred up. The big kings will come in through spring, and then they'll disappear and they'll start trickling back over the summer. And then as autumn comes on, we'll get another little rush of them, hopefully. But in December, January, the water can get cold, believe it or not. We get a couple of cold days with the northeasters that come in that bring in the colder, dirty water. The blue bottles have just come in now, and we didn't have blue bottles all through December, which was not unusual. And this clean water, like I had one day with about 7 meters of viz. Otherwise, every other time I've been out was 15 metres, and a blue 15 metres up to 25 metres. We reckon one day we had 30, but we weren't game to call it because people would call us bullshit. But the video footage I have is just fantastic. I've had a ball filming as well. And just
What have you been filming on?
Mate, people are calling me a bubbly, a greenie now, because I've just it's not that I'm I still like to shoot fish, and I've got a mate who have started up a mob called Octosub. Some spear guns. They're laminated timber spear guns, open muzzle. They're pretty funky little weapons. We've got an AR-15 handle rear end and an AR-15 handle mid handle, and they're doing a Sigil submech for a rear handle. And they're cool. They're great little guns. So I've been mucking around with them.
You've been buddies with Bob for years, haven't you?
Yeah, I have, mate. Well, he's built my guns for, he's built my guns for almost 30 years. And the thing is,
I could get him on the show, don't I?
You've got to get him on, mate. The first guns he built me, I still use. They're still good. So, and he's doing this, and I'm having a ball. I'm mucking around with them. So I'm shooting fish, but I like to film, and I'm trying to do a fish ID thing. And funnily enough, Daniel Mann brought out a whole fish ID thing for the UK lads. I noticed last week, and I thought, fantastic. And I've had that in mind. So I've been getting fish footage all along and just filming the fish. And I'm hopeless, mate. I'm just, I've got the Sony strapped to the side of my head and I'm either too high, too low, not close enough, or too close and it's a bit blurry. So I'm just having a ball. It's like starting out spearfishing again. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm trying to kill fish with kindness through the lens.
I was just going to say that, like,
so, that's fun.
It's another skill set, isn't it? Like filming.
I totally respect people that do it well. And then the editing part, forget it. Somebody needs to edit for me, I think. So, but yeah, I'm having fun. It's good fun.
Awesome. Well, I brought you on the episode today to chat about death piles, and we're going to have a lot of philosophical chat through this. So, but basically, like this episode, I headed into Australia Spearfishing, and I found a bunch of people that were in a spearfishing stores, but they weren't necessarily spearos. In fact, one out of the 6 I chatted to was a spearo, and I got their opinions and their thoughts on death piles. But I guess we need to start with what a death pile or a dock of death photo is. So, in your words, how would you describe a death pile?
Oh, mate, just a lot of dead fish. Look, a lot of fish that are on the ground, lying on bitumen with no one in the photo, or one person with a lot of fish that exceed the bag limit, and there's just one person in the photo. Even exceed the bag limit of 2 people, because you would assume there's his buddy that's taking the photo, but there's enough there for 3 people in the photo. That type of thing bugs me. Blood all over the fish, guts hanging out. The fish doesn't look like it's been kept on ice. It's been out in the sun for 4 hours. That's my sort of death pile that I don't like, okay? Yeah, and I see that.
You sound like a little bit like me. Like, one of the problems I have with death piles is, like, as you can imagine, like running a spearfishing media sort of business or, podcast. Like, I've got Instagram and I've got Facebook and I'm scrolling through feeds and it's just walls and walls of dead fish that I didn't shoot. And sometimes the treatment of the fish is not good. And like you say, the volume of fish per person, or like without context of reading the contents or the comments and stuff like that, seems excessive, and it doesn't seem to be portraying in our sport, the pursuit of spearfishing in a positive light. So that's kind of why I wanted to do this episode.
Yeah. Mate, I'll just cut in there. I think what might have triggered this for you was that lovely bloke from Lebanon that put up this photo. Look what I've caught. And mate, he didn't give any comment. And people start to pillar him. He was bashed, and I said, hang on, mate, look, and I mentioned culture, and I said, what you've done, you upset people from my neck of the woods because they don't get it, and I understand that you guys don't have any fisheries laws over there, because I only heard about that from a Lebanese fellow who I was diving with not so long ago, and he was explaining all that to me. He's one of my students. And I went, wow, you don't have laws over there? No, not at all. Do what you like. So when I explained that to him, he came back and he's really cool with his reply, right? And I saw him post elsewhere that photo and he explained what he did, that he's a commercial fisherman. Everything's fine with what he's done. It's a good catch. So he's proud of his catch. And I think he's demonstrating the skill of his workplace. So I think if people wrote something as well, then that's okay. But yeah, I might be getting a bit off tack at the moment. Yeah.
No, it's good. We're going to circle back to these comments as we get into this episode. I just wanted to give a little bit of context before cueing this audio, but I went into Adreno Brisbane. I found 6 people and I interviewed them. I asked them a series of questions after showing them sort of 10 photos of fairly atrocious looking death piles. And this is kind of some of the comments they had to say. Let's have a listen and then we'll circle back in and have a bit of a discussion. One of the things I wanted to discover was whether or not people on the street or people that don't even spear themselves had the same or similar reactions to seeing death piles on social media. I was super curious as to exactly how other people perceive death piles or dock of death photos. So I headed into the Adreno store at Wollongabba and I just pulled random people aside and asked them a series of questions. The first thing I did was show them 8 or 10 photos of proper death piles, like mountains of fish. And just sort of, I was surprised at some of their reaction. Have a listen.
Lots of colours. Fish. Oh, the blue ones are pretty spectacular.
But Jane's initial thoughts changed a little.
Well, at first it looked very pretty. It looked very very organised, very tranquil. But then as the pictures went on, you could see there's just lots and lots of fish.
Just VB was a little bit different, and so were the rest.
Bit of a catch and cook for whole village. That's what I see. Where are these at?
They're from all over the place.
Yep. Geez, that's heaps of cray.
Wow. Yeah, most of them seem pretty wasteful to me. There's no way that amount of people are going to eat that.
Sure, that's a centre console boat. Shock. Full to the brim of multiple species of fish and lobster. Holy smokes. That's a lot of fish. Yeah, massive catches is what I'm saying.
Overfishing. Just seems like too much for a couple of people, but still looks like fun. There's fishing for eating and there's fishing for sport, and then there just seems to be put them in the freezer until we don't need them anymore. I guess, I don't know, maybe that's just me.
Heaps of fish, fucking heaps more fish, fish and lobsters, just so many fish. Where are they getting all these things from? Is this from spearfishing?
So by now you've guessed that at least half of these people are not spearos themselves, but they are kind of peripherally interested and aware of spearfishing. Let's go and meet some of the people I had a chat with and find out who they are.
My name is Jason. I've become interested in spearfishing or hand spearfishing at the moment.
Yeah, I'm Jazz VB, live around Cleveland area. Yeah, just getting new rubber and stuff, trying to restore my gun from when I was younger.
My name's Georgia. I'm at Adreno today because I work here in the scuba diving area. I've been working here for nearly 4 years.
Hi, my name's Jane and I'm in Adreno today because my partner is looking at some fins as he's a spearfisher.
Do you spearfish?
I don't.
Yeah, Grant's my name. I've come in with my partner so she can pick out a wetsuit. I don't go online very much. I don't, look up that much about spearfishing apart from how to repair my spear gun when I break it.
So as you can tell, I chatted with a diverse bunch of people and they weren't necessarily all from one political party. They weren't all greenies or lefties or, any of the other sort of catchphrases we like to throw around for people that don't necessarily agree with the spearfishing life. Most of these people were peripherally aware of spearfishing. What I found interesting was the questions they started to ask about the photos after they had their first sort of initial reaction. These are some of the ideas and thoughts that they had and the information that they wanted to know after seeing some of the photos.
Yeah, I'd be asking them pretty quickly where they got it from, and then tips how they did it and all the rest of it, everything, pretty much.
I guess as well, it's all down to how many of those were allowed to be caught, how many of those would just get thrown back having been caught, and what they're actually going to be used for. Are they going to be used to feed families or are they just going to get thrown away?
Some of the ones that looked more overseas, there could be a commercial purpose for it, so might be a different story, but there were definitely a few that were, 2 people on a small boat and about 100 fish. That's extreme.
I tend to think about bag limits quite a lot when I see really big catches, and I also think about, as a Spearo, we get to pick what we're taking, and I tend to only take what I need. And I always wonder when I see massive catches like that whether or not people are taking what they need or they're just out to deplete the resource.
Jason and Just VB had some sort of similar questions. They wanted to know a bit more of the story behind some of the catches.
Overfishing, yeah. Unless, of course, that was for commercial fishermen to sell to markets. But if there's 2 guys going out there just bagging them up and taking them home, I'd also want to know the size of the family that they're feeding. Not that I'm into vegan or anything like that. It just seems like if I went out there and caught 3 fish, I'd be happy. And I don't need much more than that because then I've got to clean it. I've got to gut it. I've got to all that work and to eat it once.
Oh, it's a bit too much fish, if it's just for you and a few of your mates, but if you're selling it out to the right people, or giving it away, it'll be all sweet, but too much overfishing, eh?
So what do these guys think about spearfishing and spearos in general?
Well, I don't have a huge knowledge on spearfishing, but I am getting to learn more through my partner and his friends who do go spearfishing, who have just started. And they're very much on the assumption that, you think about what you want to catch. You don't just go for anything. You sort of lie and wait and really kind of think about the fish and go for what is going to be the most sustainable, I guess. But also it's having a knowledge of the fish. I always say to him, when you're under the water, it's going to be so difficult to identify. And I guess this is where problems lie as well. People spearing the wrong fish.
Nah, I don't think spearfishing like that. I think it's spearfishing more of a, you go out, you hunt for what you need and what you want, only taking the bare minimum that you'll eat. You don't need to spear that much. One or two fish will do you for a week. So that's a bit crazy, too crazy.
If that's representative of all spearos, which I don't think it is, but there's definitely too many out there that are like that, it's not a good impression. It doesn't represent the sport well. I think spearfishing, I have a lot of respect for it, but it should be to catch food that you're going to eat and share and enjoy with others. It's not about catching the most fish or the biggest fish. I don't think that's really what the spirit of it should be. Most spearos are pretty decent people. Even from customer service point of view, I get a lot more problems and I feel a lot more disrespected as a woman from more scuba divers than spearos. That's definitely my experience. And there's good and bad in all of it, but to my surprise and probably to other people's surprise, that's my experience.
Absolutely. So of the spearfishing stuff I do follow, usually it's about technique in your free diving more than about the actual volume of fish you're catching. And it's about picking and choosing. If you want to catch a big fish, you're going out to catch the big fish and you pick the one that you want and you take it. And then that's your fish. It's I think it's probably a negative impact. Similar to the sort of thing with Big Blue being taken down in Sydney, stuff like that.
After I'd shown these guys the photos and got their sort of first impressions on, their thoughts and feelings about, seeing these photos and how they associated that with, what they already knew about spearfishing, I decided to ask them if it was their loved one or their mate, their partner, their friend that was doing this sort of spearfishing and posting this stuff on social media, what would they say to them? What would they try and influence them, or what would their sort of, what would they do?
It would depend on how close I was with them. I'm not much of a keyboard warrior, but if it was someone who is close to me and I know I think should be held to a higher standard than that, I'd probably message them and say, what's the context here? Or just mention it. If it was one of the guys that works here, for instance, I'd definitely question it. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't say anything. That's not my problem. That's what they want to do, that's fine. But I'm not going to go out there and write a big message to anyone about it. It's just good fishing, but that's just me, I guess. I'm not going to stand on a soapbox and as much as I am now, I suppose.
Well, I guess I don't ever know if he'd ever catch that many.
But if he did?
I don't think he would. Yeah, I don't think it's something that he's driving towards to do something that extreme. For him, it's just about feeding us and close family. It's not about getting a name out there. And he's rubbish with social media.
Perfect. Every good Spearo is rubbish with social media.
I'd definitely have a chat to them and find out, how they felt about it, and maybe not confront them head on, but just plant some ideas in their heads about how to be a responsible fisherman.
Now, I don't know about you, but I love new gear, and spearfishing.com.au have got a huge range. Mad flat shipping rate, especially in Australia, and if you use the code NoobSpearo, you not only support us, but you get $20 off every purchase over $200. That's right, pump in the code NoobSpearo at checkout, NOOBSPEARO at spearfishing.com.au, and you will save $20 on every purchase over $200. No brainer. Thanks, Adriano. I deliberately found 6 people that, weren't really, your run-of-the-mill social media going obsessed Spearos. So, I mean, there was one Spearo in there, but really they were just 5 everyday people that were just kind of, peripherally aware sort of, of spearfishing. So I felt like I got, a fairly non-biased Southeast Queensland view on death piles. But I'm interested to hear what you thought.
Of their opinions, I guess I'm impressed that no one really freaked out about it, because I've seen those photos you showed me, and I've made comments on at least 2 of those photos to one of those social media influencers who's a young bloke, lives in the States, whatever. So, and also I've got to be, and what was pointed out in there, and there were some great observations there from people.
100%.
It could be commercial as well. It could be their business. They could be feeding their families. We don't know the story, so you can't judge, right? But when it's repeated and repeated, and you see, I know the history of those photos, and I've seen plenty more from that person. Is it really necessary? And I love the comment the young lady said, representing all. If that's all Spearos, it's not a good impression of spearfishermen. And she said, I don't think it would be all spearfishermen, because the spearfishermen I meet are generally nice. I thought that was interesting that she came up with that. I love the wow that was brought up in there. Someone was blown away by it.
Yeah. One of the things that come through was like, if they understood the context of the photo, like in terms of were they commercial people, was it multi-diver, multi-day trips and these sorts of things, I felt like they had a lot more understanding and they weren't so offended by it. Whereas if it was just, mad big files of fish without any context, it's kind of like, holy moly, is that spearfishing? Like it was like they were sort of taken aback.
Yeah.
None of them really seem to take a I hear some Spearos will defend death piles. They'll say, well, our ecosystem can sustain this type of pressure. We're fishing well within the legal limits, and this is just what we do, And sometimes I think, well, they could be right. I don't understand their fishery, but then I think it's okay if it's probably just you doing that to the environment. But if every single guy in your spearfishing club and girl in your spearfishing club goes out and fishes like that, then surely it's got to have an impact on your fishery. Like none of our fisheries are robust enough to sustain that sort of pressure long term.
No, they're not. Look, I hear about, I think a couple of those photos are taken around the Florida area, and I hear the fishing is vast there and perfectly suited to spearfishing, and it's phenomenally, like there's hundreds of kilometres of fishing access there. So it's like cultural, it's regional. It's hard to comment when you don't know the area and where they're getting it from. It's like the photo of the French Polynesian guys I showed you, man, and you went, wow, that's excessive.
Yeah.
And I said, man, they're a bunch of commercial Spearos that shot that over 3 days. You yourself went, oh, yeah, okay, well, that's their living, that's their family livelihood, and they're, showing off their skill. So that's cool. Man, where do you draw the line? Like,
context is everything, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
Even when you have the context, right, and you understand the story behind it, other people are going to show those photos to government bodies, and some of them aren't even going to know that those photos weren't even taken in their areas, and yet they're still going to be used against Spearos in other parts of the country and other parts of the world. This is one of the biggest problems with them, I think.
Yeah, mate. I used to see it at meetings I'd attend, and they want to lock an area off or stop spearfishing, and you're killing all the groper and all this nonsense that just doesn't happen. And they scrounge photos from anywhere and everywhere to shock people with it. And it's going, hang on, that fish isn't even speared in New South Wales. Hang on, that fish is from overseas. Where are you getting this information from? There was a post on Facebook today of a guy that started out. He quoted Carlos Isles from his book from the 90s, whenever he wrote it, when he was on Catalina Island. And look, it's a sabbatical journal, like what he's written. And I'll be honest, in the 90s, most people laughed at that book because the guy was too grassroots. I was a young bloke going, man, this guy's a freak. Like, he just lives and breathes the salt. And I think he's been underwater for too long. But totally respect where he's come from, okay? And he was passionate about what's going to go on in the ocean in time. And so this guy started on the subject of fish and then went to the slaughter of sharks. But the photo he used was, and he's talking about hunting yellowfin tuna, he's used a photo of a spearfisherman chasing rainbow runner. So he's just lost his type of debate and commentary he wanted. So you've got to have the right argument behind you and the right evidence, I suppose.
Another thing was, like, I noticed most of the people I chatted to seemed fairly unwilling to even comment on even their good friend or family's photo. And this is their good friend or family, people that they can directly influence, and they're still unwilling to talk to them.
Yes.
That shows you that most of the time it's like an iceberg. If you're getting like 3 or 4 comments on a social media post that are negative, those people are probably indicative of quite a few other people that are sharing the same sort of ideas and thoughts about it.
Yeah. Look, I think a lot of people post this big death pile. Let's just call it a death pile and keep what our brothers in the States call it. I think people are, some of obviously their friends must like it and think, wow, you're amazing. What a guru you are. Like, Beastmaster level, 99. Is that it? Is it ego that causes people to keep posting and posting lots of dead fish? So, and hence there's no one there. They haven't got any friends or peers trying to wake them up.
Like you sort of identified, there's commercial people, there's charter boat operators, there are people that go out on multi-day, multi-diver trips, and I can understand some of the photos. But even as a person that's been on some of those trips, I look at them and I go, I probably wouldn't take those same photos of those trips. Like, I might pull out a few select fish and stand on the back of the boat and write a story about each fish. But I don't know that there's a reason to show people the volume of fish that sometimes we might take on a reef trip, because it can be used in a bad way against us.
That's it, yes. So as I used to say to guys 20 years ago, show your mates in your photo album. Do you have a photo album still, Shrek? So you show your photo album at your club meeting, all right, to your mates around at your house, having a couple of beers, telling them the trick. You don't have to put every photo you've got on the internet.
Well, it helps for me too, because I'm a bit of a slob and don't seem to take a good photo. So I never want to be in them anyway. Oh, I was going to say, like the esky shots and, like there's no people in them, like just an esky shot showing, like a bunch of fish in an esky. I don't even think they make good images to share on social media, so I don't. I don't see a point.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, so let's have a look at that. Let's talk about the esky shot, because some esky shots are cool. As one of the ladies said, oh, pretty colours. I like all those blue ones. They're probably parrots or something, right? Which is, a lot of people are trying to stop us from catching parrots because they say, they do good for the reef. I just see them pooing all around the reef, but that's probably the good thing, right? But open up an esky and you see lots of colours and you go, that's a pretty cool box, right? There's the big 10-kilo jack in there. There's a 10-kilo jobby. Or look, there's another big jack. That looks like it's a 30-kilo mackerel because that'd be a 160-litre esky. There's a couple of nice corals. Great. The next esky photo you see, it's got 8 20-kilo big dead kingies in it, yellowtail kingies. You go, oh, hang on, that's not good. But there were probably more fish shot in the colourful esky, but that's okay. And that's how I look at it. What do you think?
Biomass has definitely got something to do with it. But, like we've learned over the years too that some of the larger fish, like sailfish and dolphin fish and things like that, they are the fastest growing fish and they're some of the most sustainable because a lot of them aren't commercially harvested. And, but someone looks at you shooting a huge sailfish and they go, oh, you're a trophy hunter. Like how you're compensating for something. And it's like, well, actually, this fish tastes really good and I can feed 30 families with it. And this fish grew to this size in 7 years. Like educating the public in our posts is definitely something we need to do. But then like a lot of it, like other spearos frown on you, like if you're the 5th person that writes an explanation of why you chose to shoot a sailfish, it looks like you're virtue signaling or something, when really you're just trying to educate the public about it.
Yeah, true. Mate, smoked sailfish is probably one of the best eating fish I've had in my memory. So what I got, I thought it was great. I've had chances to shoot more, but I haven't, and that's my own choice. But that's it. Maybe if I see one, world record one day, I might shoot it. I don't know, but who knows? That'll happen on the day. Every day is a different day when you see a fish. I'll just mention there's a good young bloke who I've known since he's been like 12. He's a South Coast lad down here in New South Wales, and he and his buddies, they had an awesome experience with a big stripe. Big black. It's 140, shot on the reel gun, had a ball, put a couple of shots into it, landed in a tinny. The fish is bigger than the tinny practically.
I did see that photo. 140 kilos or something.
It's insane. And people, yeah, man. Yeah, Mitchie, man. I was so happy for them. It's just a great epic adventure and story. They fed everyone apparently. And there's people saying, why'd you shoot it? Oh, it's a noble creature. It's so easy to shoot. And these are people, mate, on their Facebook profiles, they're holding up big, dirty 30-kilo sambos that are like the second dumbest fish in the ocean. Marlin.
I read your debate.
Okay. Sorry, mate. I'm just doing this while I'm killing time, getting this up. But, mate, it's just there should be no justification for that. It's legal. It's ethical. Those things are the rats of the sea. They're not in any danger of being wiped out. There's I don't know. There's zillions of them. They're everywhere and they're fast growing. Shoot one, eat one. If the shot presents itself, take it. But if that's someone else doesn't want to, that's fine. Don't bag someone for taking something like that. That's ridiculous.
The way you dealt with that conversation was pretty artful. You did quite well. You're much better behaved than you used to be, I saw. It was quite graceful.
I know, mate. I upset a lot of people.
You made an effort to teach this guy and share an alternative point of view, and you didn't, bash him with it. You were pretty careful about it. I thought it was clever. It was good. And other people that are reading that, they'll see that and they'll learn as well.
Yeah, I hope so, mate. You got it, mate. Keep educating. I don't mind what people do. So the thing, and we'll come back. We're going to mention this for sure. But when you put the wetsuit on, mate, you're representing all spearfishermen. And that young lady said it. This isn't a representation of spearfishermen, all of those death piles, because she's aware that she thinks that most spearfishermen don't do that, and they don't.
No.
All right. And you can have that one day and you shoot a few fish. That's great. But you're not going to do that every day, are you?
Oh, yeah. Today's podcast brought to you by brand new sponsor, Neptonics. They might be brand new to the Noob Spearo podcast, but they have been around for years. Neptonics Spearfishing produce and represent some of the best spearfishing gear on the planet. Jerry Guerra says, if we sell it, hang on, let me do his voice. If we sell it, we believe in it, we trust it, and dive it. And Jerry Guerra, he's a knowledgeable dude, and I'll back that Neptonics statement. If they stock it, they believe in it, and you can use it. Neptonics.com. Use the code NOOB10 to save 10% off store-wide. NOOB10. Neptonics.com. Proud sponsors of the Noob Spearo podcast. I think we're going to keep circling up with some of these topics as we get through a bunch of voice messages that I've been and discussions that I've had with Patron legends and just influential spearos from all around. I've got a bunch of them. I want to start getting through them. We can sort of have a listen to one and then maybe have a quick chat after. Let's get into Rhys Clay. He left me a voice message. He's a local Southeast Queensland spearo from the Sunny Coast Club. He's a patron listener of the show. Let's hear what Rhys had to say on Dock of Death or Death Pile photos.
Wanyanulam Shrek, it's Rhys Clay from the Sunshine Coast, and thank you for sending through those questions about the Death Pile pics. It's definitely something that me and my friends in our spearfishing club have talked about. And firstly, my thoughts on the phenomena and why people do it. I personally have an interesting relationship with these Death Pile pics. When I started out, I used to take them all the time. And when I look back on it, it was a way to prove myself. And also, I was just stoked on my catch. And looking back at it, I ate all those fish. I was within my bag limits, within my size limits. And when I started out, they weren't target fish. They were silver drummer. They were morwongs. These aren't target species where we live. So ecologically, is it that bad? I don't think so. But we got to look at how the general public perceives these pictures. And from my experience, it's not great. My own circle, my friends and family, it's a fairly left-wing circle. And I don't think the Death Pile pics are perceived very well. After sending them through to a few friends and family and getting negative reactions, it's something that I made the choice to, stop doing. Even though personally I didn't really see anything wrong with them. I was within my bag limits, within my size limits. In fact, we actually go off the Western Australian bag and size limits because we just think the Queensland limits are too loose. And Western Australia is basically one of the best managed fisheries in the world. Now, if you have a friend or if you someone you know that's posting these sorts of pictures, what's a good way to engage with them? Well, look, just the way someone pulled me up on a few pictures that I took when I started out, and I was angry. I thought I was doing the right thing, and I thought they were being hypocritical. But looking back, they were probably right in just seeing a pile of dead fish does not present a good image towards the sport. They don't see the day of work and the 4 people that paddled a kayak a couple of kilometres out and really put in work and filleted everything and, cooked some of the frames and all that sort of stuff. They don't see that. And so I guess if you're approaching somebody, just say, look, you've done a great job. That's an awesome catch. But we need to be careful because we don't want to put out a negative image, and some people are going to perceive that as negative. Even though I don't agree with that, some people are going to see it that way. So maybe just post a picture with the best fish of the day and, just keep the death pile pics on your phone. Don't put them out in the social media world. Anyways, thanks for the question, Shrek, and I'll catch up with you later. Cool.
So that was Rhys, and really liked Rhys, and he's been a long-time member of the community for, forever. And I quite liked what he had to say there. And before we sort of tuned out, or while we were tuned out there, you said something that was pretty cool. It was about spearos and their wetsuits. What was it you said?
An old buddy of mine brought it up years ago, Darren Higgins. He's got the Seedlecraft bolts now, but that's sidetracking. But Darren Higgins told me when we're having this discussion on ethics and what's right and what's wrong, and I've carried this mantra ever since he said it. Every time you put on a wetsuit, you're wearing a uniform representing all spearfishermen. So do the bloody right thing. And I can't summate that any better. And don't be a dickhead, basically, when you're wearing the wetsuit. Just remember that. And that's easy. Just respect your catch. And Rhys Clay goes up another mile in my estimation of that young man, and he should be the AUF national president with an attitude like that. That's fabulous. I'll vote 1 Rhys Clay. I think it's good. And can I say that a lot of us are trying, not a lot of us, but there's a few of us in the club scene down here in Sydney. We try and endorse the 6 stages of spearfishing, and it creates great debate. And Rhys is talking about his stage 2. So the stage 1 is the beginner stage that you just want to shoot a fish, and stage 2 is the bagging out stage. I want to shoot lots of fish, okay? And you can go to any stage throughout your diving career. It depends on your mood. But everyone goes through that stage, I want to shoot lots of fish. And he's right. Just be selective in what you show.
We're going to talk more about the stages of, the maturity stages of a Spearo, because another person brings up this point. So we'll go there a little bit more, I think, in depth. Right now, I want to head over and chat with Greg Rothaus, who makes a couple of absolute cracker points. So let's have a chat with Greg now.
Hey, Shrek. This is your loyal Patreon listener, Greg, talking here. And hey, thanks for reaching out, and thanks for pinging me for my opinion on that. I got to tell you, I've really enjoyed your podcast a lot. I literally have listened to every one of them, and I got notes on them, and I've learned so much from them. So thank you for all of that. And I look forward to all the other ones. You picked this interesting topic to start off with, and it really brings up, for me, 2 conflicting feelings or emotions about it. Number one is a philosophy I have of not really telling anybody else who's spearfishing how to go about what they do. I don't like to get in their gear. If they take their limit every day, then that's within the law, and they can do that. So I just kind of try to stay out of their space and what they're doing, and just have a good time with them. And I don't really, get in their gear if I think they may be overfishing a little bit or not treating their catch well and respecting their catch. I just let them just kind of do their thing and stay out of their gear. But, I got to tell you, since you asked, I'll tell you, it really bothers me to see those pictures and to see that and what the impact of those can be for spear fishermen and for the reef. People use those pictures against us. Areas that you probably have been to and I've been to have been shut down because, they're feelings that they're being overfished, and then using those pictures like that, to shut us down. And so there's really consequences for that beyond, just kind of high-fiving yourself and throwing them out there and letting everybody see what you did. There's consequences down the road for that. And we all have to be really careful. They will lock spearos out of areas quicker than they'll lock line fishermen out of areas. We all know that. So I just think it's something, to be really careful of, and maybe focus more on some of the, if you're going to focus on some stuff, focus on some of the cooking and some of the grilling that you do afterward, and showing how you're using the fish and respecting your catch and all of that. I think sometimes those will go a long way. So again, thanks a lot for reaching out, and I appreciate it, and keep up the great work. I can't wait to hear your next podcast, man. Take care, Shrek. Bye.
I think he latched onto a good point there about they'll lock Spearos out faster than they'll lock out just about any other used group. And you've experienced that down your way.
Oh, yeah. No, there's some sage comments there. So I like that. The consequences are massive, the ramifications. We talked 20 minutes ago about people will use anything they can as a weapon against us. And I don't mean to, I'm not sounding neurotic. It's just that I've had to deal with it. My association's had to deal with it. My peers have had to deal with it since 1948, right? And if your state representatives, and blokes in Oz, probably I'd say 80% don't even know that there's an association representing them, okay? The reason why they're allowed to spearfish in that area, it's not your God-given right, no. In the Constitution, they can take that away tomorrow from us, okay? It's in the Constitution. It's that the people lobby and fight for access, and there are a small bunch of people in every state that do it, thanklessly. I've stepped away from it a fair bit now, but in every state, Australian Underwater Federation and the USFA, Underwater Skin Divers and Fishermen's Association, do it. So, yep, I totally agree with Greg there with the consequences. You got to look out.
Some absolute champions lobby government, and they go above and beyond the call, like Simon Horvath down your way, and it burns people out because it's a difficult line to tread, and there's a lot of work involved, and it's tireless work of people that lobby governments around the world that allow us to spearfish. Like, there's countries in Europe, like Germany, where they're completely banned from spearfishing. There's no rationale for this. There's no good science to back it up. It's purely done because parties have lobbied the government to remove the rights of spearos, and this is something that we should all be concerned about and grateful for.
Yeah, I look at it, and I'll hark on with this, with Greg's point, the consequences. You look at jet skiers, all right?
Oh, wow.
Now, the New South Wales government one day just said, no jet skis allowed in Sydney Harbour anymore. No consultation, just said, bang, gone. And that scared us in the association, and Spearfishing went, whoa, they did that? There's more jet skis than spearos at the time, okay? We were blown away by that. That shocked us. So that put us on our toes even more, and we dug it a little bit deeper in the trenches.
While we're talking about Sydney, let's get down to a bloke who left me a message from your area. His name's Adam Bassir, and hear what Adam had to say about it.
Hey Shrek, this is Adam. I really like what you're doing with the podcast, and glad I can be of help to you with this really contentious topic here. I guess diving straight into it, I really enjoy seeing images and multimedia of people lining up shots on the pelagic as it's coming broadside and knocking it out, posting it up there. It really feeds the stoke. Sydney's weather's been a bit strange lately, so seeing videos like that has been really feeding the stoke, and I'm really looking forward to heading into the water and applying the knowledge from what I've learned from your podcast or from videos on YouTube, and see what I can do and hopefully get my first kingfish in the bag. But yeah, I guess with these images it's a bit different. You do see quite a few of these, not often, but I don't think they can be seen in a positive light unless someone really understands the context behind it. We've had situations before, I guess, in the Spearo channels on Facebook and our own messenger groups where even an image like that posted up in a community, Spearo community in particular, can relate to quite a bit of criticism. And in fairness, that person did not really kind of outline, hey, we respected the bag limit. We've had a few Spearos with us. This was pretty much going to be my freezer and feed the family for the next 4 months. People can't really see that in an image or in a video. All they see are the numbers and the person smiling behind it, and it can lead to quite a few problems, especially for that individual or community at large. It's just not something that we should probably encourage, I think. We've had similar instances in land-based hunting where someone knocks over a deer and posts up an image of them posing with the deer horns, that causes quite a bit of backlash, especially with people who are a little bit more conservation focused. But that understanding of the tagging structure, the licensing, seasonality of hunting, and how it helps with pest control, it's not really laid out in those structures. So we do really need to be very conscious about setting out that context. And as spearos, I think we could really help by setting out context, really laying out what we're doing in the water and letting people know that it's not the easiest thing to do. We're not successful all the time. Yeah, there's a bag limit, there's a structure of Department of Fisheries, and we'd like to keep that going and be ethically and environmentally responsible. We can be that way. Cheers.
Simple, accurate, deadly. Use the code NOOB, N-O-O-B, and save $30 on any spear gun for a limited time only. Go to killshotspearguns.com, check them out for yourself. Handmade in the Florida Keys by Ed Martin. Use the code NOOB, N-O-O-B, or head into the shop and say, "Crikey, mate." And apparently Ed will hook you up with a $30 discount on any timber spear gun. Get your hands on one, killshotspearguns.com. So, Simon, unfortunately, due to technical issues, like Adam's voice message dropped out a little bit there for you, but basically he was reinforcing the ideas that, when you post these images, if you provide context and people understand the nature of what it is that you're doing, like in terms of, the efforts it's taken, the bag limit, the size limits, the seasonal nature of the take and things like that, like people have got a lot more empathy and understanding for what it is you're doing. And so, maybe there is a place to post catches that might be considered excessive in some parts of the world, as long as you provide a lot of context and people can understand what it is you're doing. And other people will stick up for you too. Like if you provide, like that Tahitian fisherman you were talking about, if that guy wrote and provided context for what he was doing and someone else attacked him, other people will jump on and say, "Hey man, that's his way of life. That's what he does for a job." So
yeah, and once he got wind of that, he did it, and plenty of people did stick up for him. And then plenty of people have been over there or been in those style of islands, how it's done, already knew to stick up for him. So, don't go firing bullets until you actually know a bit of background too, might help. But then the people who don't spearfish wouldn't know to ask. So they're the ones we've got to watch out for, as Greg mentioned earlier.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we're going to head off to Tampa Bay to talk with Ben Choi. He was a past guest way back in the day. A lot of his spearfishing has been done in the Texas, Florida area. He's now a ship captain, and he's a really experienced spearo. I was really keen to hear from Ben because I saw a post on Tampa Bay Spearfishing on their Facebook group by a bloke named Milo, and he said, and I like his comment. It was like, I like this whole conversation. Parts of it were not respectful, but it was funny to read nonetheless. He says, "This is going to be unpopular and get some of your panties in a bunch, but fuck it. Can you clowns stop posting your entire dock of death, fish box, wheelbarrow, loaded cooler every single time you go out? Half of this group murders a lot of fish, me included, but there's a reason we don't post it, because it helps literally nobody other than your social media egos. All it does is create a bullseye for spearfishing and yet another reason to drive a wedge in the recreational sector. Snap a shot of your prize for the day and share that, not your entire slash sesh." And then there's this huge conversation that's boiled over as this sort of happens on social media. And Ben, who I know, chimed in on it. And I liked some of his comments, and I really wanted to hear some of his genuine thoughts and feelings about the situation. So let's have a listen to sort of Ben. He's left me 2 voice messages, so I'll play them truck and trailer. Here we go.
I'm liking this already.
Hey Isaac, it's Ben from Florida. Just wanted to take a few minutes and give you a little recording about my opinions about the dock of death pictures. I've definitely been guilty of posting my fair share of dock of death pictures on Instagram. I think some of the motivation for posting those pictures is to brag about, your awesome catch that you've gotten that day. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But at the same time, there's definitely an argument to be made for not posting those pictures. I've seen the negative effects of those pictures being used against spearfishermen and fishermen alike in regulatory meetings, fisheries regulatory meetings, that, they say that, oh, look, you killed 40 or so hogfish or 40 or so snapper. Look at how destructive you're being to the environment. I don't think that's sound science. I was using Facebook pictures or social media posts to quantify the stock assessment of any fishery. With that being said, I do plan on cutting down on my dock of death pictures. I've definitely taken my share of flack for posting those types of pictures, but I also don't want to preach at anybody and tell them that they shouldn't, because ultimately it's your prerogative. And having spearfished for a long time, I've seen a lot of changes in the fishery and a lot of changes in the spearfishing world, and I've started to realize that, you don't need to brag and post as much anymore than you need to. With that being said, it's always nice to show everybody your catch and share that with some people whenever you get a good catch in. I don't think we should actively be discouraging posting those pictures. I think, just going to let people do what they do. But at the same time, also education and giving them the larger picture and explaining that to a lot of people will definitely go a long way. Hey, Isaac, had some more thoughts that after I finished recording, but just reading through your message you sent me, how does the general public perceive these pictures? And I think that's really the bottom line, is that, they may see these pictures as excessive and slaughter, but I think it's a lot to do with education as well. How many people were involved in taking that catch? You could have had 6-7 guys on the boat that day, 6-7 divers, and when you split it up, really, it's not that much meat. If each one of those people had posted the same picture of that catch divided by 6 or 7, it wouldn't have been that impressive, and the outrage wouldn't have been there. So I think has a lot to do with education of the public. I think the wrong way to go about, engaging with these people who post these huge dock of death pictures is just to preach at them. I think the correct way is, to get more information on the day, and if they're within the regulations of, the local regulations, and if they're within the law, then, there's really not much you can do. I'm not saying that, dock of death pictures are horrible. I'm not saying that they're the best thing in the world either. I think they're just going to be a fact of life, part of spearfishing, part of fishing. Anybody who goes out and fishes wants to share their catch with their friends, and now that they have social media, to share their catch with the rest of the spearfishing community. I don't think we should actively discourage it, but at the same time, I think we should increase education on what the species are and what the regulations locally are. You can just post a picture and everybody will assume that you killed all those, 60 fish or whatever by yourself. But if you educate the public in your post saying taken by 6 spear fishermen over 2 days, a 2-day trip, I think it'll go a long way. So I hope this helps, and hope you're doing well. Take care.
Oh, good. So that was Ben Choi, like I said, an experienced spearo and a really nice guy. Like I've got a lot of time for Ben. He had a blackout a few years ago on a wreck, and he was humble enough to share that footage publicly along with some of the lessons he learned. And I think that's a huge thing because, so many people just aren't aware of some of the things. So, and he gives back to the community. I've got a lot of time for Ben. So I was really interested in some of his comments, particularly about just teaching guys that do share, catches that could be perceived as excessive, just providing some context. What did you think, Simon?
I grinned all the way through that. You could see me grinning. Yeah, I like Ben. I remember that podcast well. It was a good interview you did with him, and I've seen the video. Well, so Ben's at that stage 6 that we call stage 6, the statesman stage. I want to give back to my environment and my tribe. So he's sort of at that level by his contribution here and what he said, insights.
100%.
So he's also reflecting on what he used to do, and he mentioned that everyone's guilty of it.
100%.
And you can't preach. I totally agree. Like you mentioned before about I used to upset people on Facebook because I used to preach, and I still kind of do, all right? No, you can't do that. And I'll be sending people messages. You might see me post publicly, but I'll be sending people private messages going, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Like, think about it. They're young blokes. They don't care. They tell you to, fuck off. What's the classic line? You hate all young spearos. You just get jealous. You're an old man. You haven't shot a fish for years. I pissed myself laughing, right? I go, what? Where are you getting that from? Pagan young spearos. I've nurtured. Anyway, look. So, yeah, he's right.
Send them the picture of you with that big Maori wrasse before they shut the fishery down for them.
So look, that's, you can't, everyone's been there, everyone's done it, and you learn. It's experience. You just learn. Those blokes in 10 years' time will be going,
yeah,
oh, yeah, okay, you shouldn't do that, kid, all right? And they would have forgotten about me, and they're going to say, don't do that to someone else, the next gen. And I hope they do. So I think that's hit the nail on the head, what Ben said. That's very, very good. It's true in what he says, those things. You can't, it's hard to throw stones if you're living in glass houses.
I think ideologically or politically in America, there's a bit of a split between Florida and California, which are their two most populous spearfishing states. I like people from both states, and I love spearfishing, and I generally like spearos. Politics and bullshit aside, I just think spearos are a good bunch, and obviously we try and influence each other for the better and all the rest of it. But right now, just to stir shit, let's go to the other side of the country and talk to a Californian. This is Nick. Nicholas Zajicek, I think is how you say his name. Also a Patron listener and a really top bloke. I'm hoping to get him on the show at some stage in the future.
Hey Shrek, this is Nicholas Zajicek. I'm currently based in Southern California. Thank you for having me weigh in on the dock of death or death pile phenomena. So I've actually discussed this with my local Spearo community and some friends and family. And the general consensus on this phenomena is that the context of the social media post is really important. For example, a spearfishing charter posting a death pile post on their account, that's basically expected. And also the perception will be that this is a multi-day or multi-diver effort. And so that doesn't seem to be a problem. It's just the advertisement from the charter. When this is on a personal social media account, that's where potentially can be problematic. This is because spearfishing is regarded, and I think rightly so, as a sustainable and selective sport. And if you're seeing posts of all these dead fish when it can maybe seem like it's just this one spearo, that can really change the perception of the sustainability of spearfishing. And perception is reality sometimes. Another thing to mention, and this has been talked about on your podcast before, is that social media posts like this can just lead to one-upmanship, and it just perverts the motivations in spearfishing. If an Instagram post becomes the most important motivator, then that's when you really have to step back and look at why you started doing the sport and why you love it. With that being said, and coming back to the context of it all, if a catch is legal and it will be cared for and shared and consumed, then a Spearo has a right to do that. Something as simple as including the details, maybe in the text of the post, about how many families this will feed and possibly even the sustainability of the catch due to the species growth rate. Details like that will help educate the general public. It still shares the stoke of the catch, and it's not just a simple boast on your social media Instagram account. And it's important because showing that we as Spearos are being stewards of the ocean, it helps our sport grow. It helps new members find us. It helps regulations written about the sport, not just focus on maybe a death pile trend of posts. So to sum it up, the perception of our sport is really key. And therefore, providing context and educating the general public, if we choose to engage in posts like this, is pretty key. And in general, I think it should be discouraged from personal accounts as much as possible. Thank you.
If your buddy had a blackout on your next spearfishing trip, think, what would the outcome of that be? Do you know how to revive someone from a blackout? Would you even be in a position to do something about it? Or would you be diving, chasing after a fish as your buddy sinks down to the bottom of the ocean? Do you know where most blackouts happen? Do you know what you can do to minimize your risk of having a blackout? My name is Ted Hardy, and I'm the founder of freedivingsafety.com. In my free online course, you will learn the truth about shallow water blackout, the myth of, I don't push myself, I know my limits, I'm in tune with my body, how to minimize your risk of having a blackout, and most importantly, how to save your buddy's life if they have one. Visit freedivingsafety.com to sign up for your free course today. Dive safe out there. It's just not even that hard.
Guys, Spearing Magazine have joined the Noob Spearo podcast to bring this episode to you today. Now, Spearing Magazine are
they're the best spearfishing magazine in the world. I'm saying it. Turbo said it. Now you know it. And if you head over to Spearing Magazine, you can check out the team. They've got Jeremy Gamble, John Paul Castro, Sky Bailey, Christopher Landers. You have a look. There's some fantastic people they've got on staff, and that's why they produce the world's best spearfishing magazine. The photography is just popping. The stories are awesome. Turbo's been rejected several times, and that's how you know it's top quality. So head over to spearingmagazine.com. You can buy it at your local retailer in the US. You can even get the digital subscription online, spearingmagazine.com.
All right, Simon, that was Nicholas from California. And what did you think? I sort of liked his underlying question there, like what is your motivation for spearfishing? Like, why are you doing this thing? I mean, on a personal level, like I've caught myself going out and I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm going to shoot this and I'm going to shoot this and I'm going to shoot this today. And then I've got out and like the first half of the day is just rubbish because I was just focused on the wrong things. And then when I finally tone it down a couple of levels, relax, start breathing, just enjoying the environment and my mates, that's when I start shooting the good fish.
Mate, I totally agree. I just go out not even knowing what I'm going to get. I don't put any expectations or ambitions on fish or on depth or anything. Just go out and have fun. That's what it's about. If you're spearfishing for likes, there's a problem with that. I remember years ago, I'm not an Instagram type of guy really at all. I've been introduced to it recently through work, but I had mates posting me photos of a guy that started up a kook page, and I'd have snapshots being sent to me for a lot by mates just laughing, look at what this guy's done now. And he was putting up photos of all of these people that were social media Instagram dudes who I don't see on Facebook, but just posting up heaps of fish. This guy used to take the piss out of them. So, and they'd get upset by it, the people, when they were posted on there. I found that quite funny, actually. And he took no prisoners. It was all around the world. He must have spent his whole life on Facebook or Instagram. But, so don't spearfish for likes. It's incredible, why people do that. Business, I can kind of understand that. But, death piles. Let's get back to death piles.
All right. We're off to we're staying in California, but we're just heading slightly further north. We're going to chat with Eric Anderson, who's he's also Central Cali Spearo, and I've got a slight man crush on him. I've got to admit it. Really like Eric. I have got a lot of time for this bloke as well. Actually, his full interview will be live by the time this comes out. It's episode 149. So if you want to hear more from Eric, then tune into that. But here's what Eric had to say, particularly about death piles.
Hey, Shrek. Thanks for reaching out, and happy to provide some perspective on this murder. No, I kid. Red rum. No, there's so many fish in these photos. I would hope it was more than two guys with some of these, and it looks like a cast net was thrown to catch some of this. But, I have my own personal philosophy with spearfishing and sustainability. And, to me, if you work in an area, you have, say, 5 spots and you rotate through in seasons, and you know what the fish behavior is, and the patterns of specific species, and some take longer to grow and some don't. And, you can identify the ones that can be targeted more often, and then identify the fish that you should let pass every now and then, let them grow a little bigger, etc. But, ultimately, I don't see the point in taking photos like this. There's some negativity already associated with, hunting and fishing and the extent of the hunt and the kill. And to me, this just adds to this. And then also, this doesn't look sustainable to me. I like to make the argument that spearfishing is very selective and sustainable for all the reasons I outlined before, but these photos really don't do it. I think the general public really is going to see something like this and be a little turned off. It also has a bit of that macho machismo, like look what I killed in the ocean. When you have a lot of spear fishermen out there, like the guys and gals on your podcast, who really are trying to put forth a message of conservation and take care of the ecosystem of the ocean, this to me is counterproductive to that. I don't know if we should actively be discouraging it, but I sure as hell ain't gonna double tap these photos on Instagram. I don't know anybody who does this. This seems to be common in maybe the eastern United States in some areas. I'm assuming some of these photos are taken around Florida, but over here, if someone came out of the water with that amount of fish over even a certain amount of days, I'd probably speak up and be like, damn, what's the point in that? You can get a license in the dragnet if you want to take that many fish. But those are just my thoughts. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, as we take to heart very dear here in the United States. But I appreciate you reaching out, and I'm watching the time here click by, and I think I'm going to make it exactly 3 minutes. Thanks.
So, I mean, Eric is he's a veteran Marine. He's not, like a trendy lefty by any means. Like, the guy loves the spearfishing. So for him to share that, I was kind of, it's kind of in line with sort of my own thoughts, if I'm honest. But what did you sort of get out of that?
I'm glad we're not alone. There seems to be a recurring theme here from these guys who you've been interviewing or who donated their time to talk about this. It's all this. It's always going to be there. You can mention it, but you won't be able to stop it. There's always going to be that look at me, look what I can do syndrome. And yet we've got the sustainability issue. We've got the respect of the ocean. All these guys think the same things. Is it just because these people that are doing it are new to the sport, haven't been in it for long, haven't had good mentors? Do they need good mentors, or who's given them the mentoring? It's like there's some really sage advice, comments that have been done here that you've garnered. It's fantastic. It makes me feel good because I look at it and go, oh, I cringe. I feel really bad. And Eric said it so well. It's not what you think that spearfishing is about and not what you tell people that what you do is about. This is a complete misrepresentation. And we go back to that young lady that doesn't know much about spearfishing at all, who you interviewed at Brisbane, that says, I hope that's not what spearfishermen do. Yeah. So who does do it? Well, there's people that do it. I don't really know them. I don't dive with them. You don't probably dive with them, nor does Eric, nor do a few of these boys. But somewhere along the line, we have done it. But did we publicise it? No.
There's cultural things here, and there's the effects of socialization too. And a lot of the time, I think some of these guys, these guys that share their catches, they don't want to be cowed by people they perceive as like from small fringe lobbyist groups, which all of us as Spearos can 100% relate to. And I'm not entirely sold on this. I'm not saying that people can't do it. I just want to have the conversation and present all the sides of this argument. I think you're the same as me, Simon. You're like guys that are the ones asking the questions, are the ones talking about it and talking to each other. They're the ones where the culture grows along with them, And I think spearfishing has grown a long way, imagine, Simon, we look at pictures from, magazines in Australia from the 50s and 60s, and, the magazines that were being churned out even in the noughts, they were very different than the magazines from 30, 40 years ago. So I think maybe, spearfishing's changing as a sport and as a lifestyle pursuit. But, let's head back to Florida. Are you keen to hear from another Floridian?
Always, man.
I have a real soft spot in my heart for the Yanks, and I could. It's definitely on my travel destinations. Anyway, we've got Ryan Rush here with his opinion on Dock of Death. Let's get into it.
Hey guys, Ryan Rush from Florida. Before I get into the controversy of the Dock of Death photos, or I like to call them Box of Death, I want to give a big shout out to Shrek and Spearo. Thank you guys for supporting our club and our community year after year. Now, my opinion of the Dock of Death photos is pretty simple. Most of the people that complain or have an issue with it either are vegan, they don't spearfish, they don't believe in hunting, and they're just trying to push their beliefs onto others. Also, I've noticed that divers that do hunt and spearfish that have an issue with this dive or come from communities that have the worst fishing regs. A great example of this is Hawaii versus Florida. In Florida, we have one of the most heavy regulated commercial and recreational fisheries in the world, and because of this, our numbers show it. We're able to go out and get 10 snapper per day, 2 grouper per day, and so on. Now let's take a look at Hawaii, for example. I'm fresh off the plane. I don't need any fishing license. If I want a commercial spearfish, all I have to do is pay a $50 license fee, and I can hunt pretty much anything I want and as many numbers as I want. Now, next time you see a dock or death post or photo, take into account where they were diving, if they were following local laws, and if so, don't complain, guys. Just because your fishery is suffering doesn't mean everyone else's is. Now, if you're a diver and you post a dock of death photo or post, and people start getting upset, don't take this opportunity to fight with them. Take this as an opportunity to educate them. Let them know that you were diving sustainably, safe, and that your local fishery can support these numbers. In the end, the only thing that matters is that you're diving safe and you have fun. So get out there, guys. Stay wet and stay savage.
Hey, Shrek, man, I laughed it, right? No disrespect, brother, but I love that opening sentence, man. Vegan, etc. That just cracks me up. The greenies, that's great. And Shrek, totally, like, as we said at the start, and I think even before we started rolling, we were talking about culture and legality and what's, happens on one side of the coast is completely different to the other. You see it North Queensland v New South Wales. You see it Coffs Harbour v Sydney. Like, what's the problem? Well, this is the problem because we're heavily regulated down here and we get in the shit for this type of thing because we got a whole heap of greenies on our doorstep. So, yeah, I can't argue with some of his logic there at all, and I'll endorse it.
Yeah, 100%. It's like sometimes it's, the whole world is held to ransom because of, a small bunch of people that just make a lot of noise. And it's an unfortunate reality, like we have these fringe groups that, they'll take snapshots, screenshots of the photos you've shared without the context that you've provided, and they'll take them and they'll start screaming at someone like, this is evil, and then all of a sudden someone has to listen because they get on the right platform, they get in front of the right media, and then all of us deal with the consequences and the fallout from it. So Ryan's he had some solid points.
Like a commercial Spearo from Lebanon who we spoke about earlier, man. It's like, unless you can't bag the guy, okay? And once he explains it, and as many of the commenters here have said, just put some context behind what it is, what's happening and what's doing. Put some more guys in the photos. And as Ryan said, we've got laws. We're heavily regulated. The fishery is safe and sound. Do that. It's great. We're having this issue in Sydney with kingies at the moment. You know all about that. Mate, just there's people, how do I say this? I don't want to get emotional or get fired up and start speaking too quickly and whining. However, the kingfish are back, okay, in Sydney. They're back. We had kingfish traps 20 years ago. They got longer, and the kingfish got decimated by these floating fish traps. And now they've stopped that. They realised the error of their ways, the government and the commercial fishery. They'd wiped the kingies out. That's an exaggeration, but they were sparse, man. And they bounced back. And it took a few years. We started to see them come back in numbers, and then they disappeared again, and then they came back. And they've just been coming back slowly but surely. We've had some great kingie seasons, and big ones are here. And the science is saying that what we're seeing this last couple of years is because of an exceptional season 5 or 6 years ago of spawning. We're seeing this now. And look, I'm just grabbing 5 or 6 years. It might be 7 or 8 or 3 or 4. This is why. And we're not going to have that again because of an exceptional spawning season. So, no, it needs to stop. We're killing too many. But everyone's catching fish, and everyone's happy they're catching a fish. It's why you pay the license. It's why we're regulated, why there's a size limit on them, and it's quite a big size limit. And I hear talk they want to up at 10 centimetres, maybe 15 centimetres. So that's getting selective and trophy size now, and for the elite, because it's quite difficult for a newbie to shoot a kingie, yeah?
Yeah. Sometimes the way the fisheries determine size limits for fish is determined on allowing them to have one reproductive cycle. So I'm not averse to sometimes upping the limit so they get 2 or 3 breeding cycles through, as long as it's backed by science.
Yeah, true, man. And this is why they jumped to 65, because they said they'll be able to get a throw of the dice then by 65. And now the new science, and I can't validate this, but people are saying that it might need to be bigger for it to work better.
65 is quite a large fish. And
it's 3 kilos.
I'd really like to hear how many reproductive cycles they're getting through. Yellowtail kingfish, I think they're actually a greater amberjack. The North Americans have the cousin of the yellowtail kingfish that we have here. they're a very strange fish, aren't they? Like they're pelagic, but they have quite a small range as far as I understand it. And like they are fairly vulnerable to fishing pressure. But I would really like to hear some science behind it all.
Mate, I've seen science of it with tagging that the kingies go straight out east off Sydney. And they go out wide, and then they'll come back in. They might not necessarily come straight back into Sydney, but it might be 40 k's down the coast or 40 k's up the coast, depending on the current movement, what they do. But it's not like they travel north and south, but they go east and then west. I've seen that discussed and talked about. You get the boys up the north coast, and they see us shooting some young bloke puts up a 8 kilo kingy, and everyone's frothing in Sydney. It's like, what's the big deal? What are you doing? But when you go up the north coast, you fall out of some of those bombies up there and you break your shoulder on, 50, 15, 20 kilo kingfish. They're everywhere. They can be. Do you know what I mean? So it's a different context. And it's like what Ryan's talking about. You're getting all excited over nothing here, guys. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, and there is a little bit of that too. Like there's a lot of overreaction to stuff. I think for me, like part of what spawned my hunger to do it is just the amount of fatigue that sets in when you do see walls and walls of death. But most people aren't exposed to what I'm exposed to. Like the general public aren't going to see my Instagram feed. Otherwise, they might be horrified. They're only going to see a select few pictures. But yeah, nevertheless, it's still a conversation that needs to happen. Let's bring it back to Australia. I want to talk to Jesse Spiller, another patron listener and an all-round good bloke. Of course, because he's a patron.
Hey, Shrek. I don't think you can address death piles without talking about spearfishing competitions. I think comps are a big driver behind, why people make and photograph and share death piles. So I don't really know much about comps. I've never competed in one. They seem a little bit stressful. My jam is just relaxing and putting some dinner on the table. I only take 1 or 2 fish a session. But from some of the rules I've read in comps, they sort of encourage participants to kill as many things as possible in a specific time frame. And that's pretty unique, even amongst fishers. So there's bass fishing in the US. Some competitions won't weigh dead fish. There's a science behind keeping fish alive to the end of the day when they're weighed in. And, after the comp, if you want to take some food home, you can. Otherwise, the rest are released. Or sail fishing, a lot of the fish never leave the water. There's rules behind touching the leader and then cutting the fish away. And, often the fish swims off unharmed. So I don't think you can really meaningfully influence death piles without shaping the competition scene. Perhaps we could encourage competitions to weigh a few fish or restrict the number of fish taken to a few per day. This could add an extra layer of skill to the competitions as well. You'd have to decide, is something better likely to come along later? At the end of the day, it's not about what we want as spearos or what we perceive. It's about what the public perceives. And we don't want spearfishing to become the next greyhound racing.
Partners of the New Spearo podcast, Neptonics.com. Neptonics offers the best spearfishing gear, spear guns, carbon fins, spear gun parts and packages at the lowest prices. Go to Neptonics.com. Use the code NOOB10 to save 10% off anything at Neptonics.com. NOOB10. Boom.
All right, man. So it's perfect. Okay. I was going to bring comps up a couple of comments ago, actually, with competition. And I had a conversation today about comps. And comps are misunderstood is probably the best way of saying it. Now, I might sound like Ryan here, but comps has spread out. Say Sydney Alderman Shield. There's 6 clubs that compete. You might get 50 divers these days. 20 years ago, 100 divers, say. They're in boats, fast boats, and they can go 30 kilometres north, 30 kilometres south, and some even go out to the Fats. So they've got 5 hours. With that, they probably dive, say, 3 hours in the water, if that. So if there's 50 divers, that's 150 hours of fishing. At the end of the year, what gets weighed in, the total catch is about, one year I think we had 8 comps in the year and 1.3 tonne, 1,300 kilos. Mate, that's not even what's thrown off in shovels this waste on a Monday arvo, the Sydney fish markets. Doesn't count, all right? It's negligible what we take and do. I've written down here farmers earlier because I was going to say competition spearos are farmers. So when we're social, we don't shoot fish, the majority of us. Yeah, we look at the fish and go, oh, you'll be good for a competition later on. We'll leave you there. What happens when you go back there? Often it's not there. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So, and the way the scoring system is that, yeah, there's multiple fish on the score sheet and all of those fish are edible. Now, if I'd said that 20 years ago, people would have laughed at me and said, Sergeant Baker, red rock cod, jackets, pike, and bagged me for saying that. These days, the young blokes, the chefs, are showing how to cook sargos, how to cook crimson bandeds, how to cook these type of fish that were considered undesirable. The cultures now and the communities, the ethnic communities that are here in Sydney and spearfishing are loving all of these fish. It's great. So it spreads the effort because you've got to be able to go into the harbour. You've got to be able to go, if you want to be good, go into the harbour, estuaries, go and fish shallow white water, fish 8-10 metres of kelp, fish sand lines, or fish 15, 16 metres. Yeah, there's a lot of territory you've got to cover. So the effort is spread and the catch rate is low. And I think also, and I'll continue on with this, and I'll probably miss 10 things and I'll come back later and say, damn, I should have said this and should have said that. But also, without clubs, there's no organisation, there's no association. And Shrek, we wouldn't even be here having this conversation in Australia.
100%.
There wouldn't be spearfishing because they were going to lock it up in the 40s, man, late 40s, because people were terrified about spearfishing. The commercial fishers were saying they're going to slaughter everything. They're going to slaughter schools of tuna. That's quite unquote, mate, in TC roughly 1956. Okay, I think it's TC roughly 56. I'm pretty sure it is.
The club scene in New South Wales is strong, and the fisheries management in New South Wales is better than Queensland. I know that there's some frailties in there, and there's some parts where they fall down, and they're influenced and lobbied by government, so they're not perfect. But
the fisheries is reactive and jumps on things when it's happening. Bit slow on abalone, very slow on mulloway in New South. Very, very slow on mulloway. I could condemn them with mulloway, but with a lot of other species, great. And they're slow on mulloway because of commercial fishing, wanting to have smaller fish, etc. That's just been a debate that's gone on for years, too many. Yeah, look, I can't bag Queensland. I like Queensland fishing laws. I like going on a charter. I like going for 10 days. And if I can shoot X amount of trout, I'll shoot X amount of trout.
no, in some ways it's really effective. Like, both states have got some strengths and weaknesses. Like, with New South Wales, I mean, they stopped you from shooting blue groper completely, and it's never changed. It's never been revoked or re-looked at. And yet mulloway, which are definitely more vulnerable, the protections seem minimal. And it seems responsive and quite slow to move. But I don't know.
I don't know. But look, I hope that kind of answers a little bit to Jesse in regards comps. What you see is what you get. So the fish nowadays, back in the day, the old comps, fish were put in a sugar bag, there were a cure of it, etc. All fish have got to be contained now. 95% of fish are in an esky and they're cold. And the fish are all edible and eat your catch. And those who don't dispose of their catch properly, they're caught or reported, and they're disqualified from the comp, and they're sort of, given the stink eye, so to speak. So, and that's very, very rare that happens.
The other thing I liked about the USFA comp scene was the data sharing that went on.
Oh, man, thanks for bringing that up. So that was the USFA report that went to CSIRO. There was a young guy, Adrian Jelidov. He lives on Thursday Island now. He's having a ball up there, spearing. He did this for his bachelor, what do you call it?
Master's thesis.
He did this and got all the comp reports. And so the CSIRO had to agree to confidentiality and write this, that they wouldn't release stuff until we okayed it. But and they got comp score sheets from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s to whenever AJ was around in the noughts. And the variance of the fish weights, etc., there's no harm done. And they have actually asked us, why are these changes? And we said, we took them off because people didn't want us, the general public, outcry, and the members of the community said, we shoot those, they're pretty colourful fish, crimson banded rats, take those off, take this off. You know what CSIRO said? Can you put them back on? Because we want the data. This is fantastic. Okay, we're the only association that's got that data in the world, as far as I'm aware of. It's valuable, it's priceless beyond. So, yeah, competitions are awesome in that way. So thanks for bringing that up. Also, we introduced the Kingfish Cup in Sydney. So hence we had over 200 sign-on in 2019, and I think 169 fished it. And then this year, in 2020, through COVID, we had 100, I think we had the same number fish it, 169 actually fish it. Not as many sign on, but the same amount fished it, which is fantastic. So that effort spread, man. I can't remember that. 15 fish got shot or something amongst 160 blokes over 2 days. That's the competition. Tell me that's bad. So it's great research too.
Hey guys, have you thought about buying a freediving watch? I think lots of us have. Many of the guests on our show swear by them. If you are sort of a little bit confused and overwhelmed by thinking about which freediving watch to buy, I've got some solution for you today. Go to spearfishing.com.au/computers and have a look in there. There's an Adreno how-to video about how to choose a good dive watch. So go to spearfishing.com.au/computers and watch their how-to vid on how to choose a good freediving watch. If you do decide to buy a watch from spearfishing.com.au, use the code NoobSpearo and save $20 on every purchase over $200 and support the Noob Spearo podcast at the same time. Thanks for listening, guys. I want to head over and chat with Eric Keener, I actually joined him for a bit of a chat. We were chatting a few things. Eric's the founder of Fin and Forage, which is a fantastic blog and really good if you want actionable sort of recipes and stuff, like just expand your horizons a bit with the fish you're cooking and the way you look at and think about fish. Eric was really cool and kind enough to join me and share his thoughts about death piles. Let's have a listen to that. We're talking today about dock of death or the death pile phenomena. You and I were chatting earlier about maturity phases of a Spearo. Can you walk us through that model that you were chatting about earlier?
Yeah, sure. So I don't think that I've already reached the end by any means, but from my understanding, and this is really common in the hunting world too, you've got your first stage, which is kill something, shoot your first fish. Then you get excited and you eventually get to stage 2, which is kill all of the fish. And then stage 3 is kill the biggest fish. And it becomes this competitive thing where you're always posting the biggest fish on the coolest fish on Instagram. And then the 4th phase is more about selective harvesting and kind of slowing down off of the competitive or social media side of hunting. And then the 5th stage is really respecting the ocean, respecting the resource, and making sure that the end result is making the best use, the most ethical use of that resource. In this case, it would be fish.
And the last stage is all about convincing the other bastards to move through the phases faster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I used to do a lot of competing, and something switched in me this year about, why am I shooting a fish for points? It just seemed kind of odd. And being that I really love to cook, my passion and motivation and the way I vocalized hunting moves and has moved more towards what can you do with the fish? We challenge ourselves to go deep and hunt hard places and go after difficult species, but why aren't we challenging ourselves more in the kitchen? And it's just another frontier in which you can enjoy the ocean and its bounty.
So the dock of death photos, the death pile photos, what's it like in your part of the world on social media? Is it still a thing?
Well, we don't have as much boat diving out here in Northern California. You get the charters that go out to the Channel Islands, but we just see typically the trends in Northern California, Central California, Oregon are how big is your lingcod, how big are your vermilion, how deep are you going, how big is your stringer. So it's kind of like a dock of death, but on a bit of a smaller scale, just based on regulations and stuff. We don't have as many charters as places like Florida and Hawaii would.
Okay. All right, cool. So you're looking at other parts of the world predominantly when you look at death pile phenomena?
That would be my assumption, yeah. We have a lot of people that, especially the competition divers, that just go out and get massive amounts of fish and, that's their, holding them up for Instagram. But we don't, based on the lack of boat access to, especially Northern California, you just don't get as many dock of death photos from our neck of the woods.
So what's your message to spearos that look at like dock of death and the guys that are maybe, they're looking at people with death piles? I mean, do you think that we should actively talk to these people or engage with them, or should we just leave it alone? What do you think? It's just a thing. Like it's a naturally occurring phenomena, so just leave it be. Or should we be speaking into it? What do you think?
Well, if it's a trend enough that a lot of people are doing it, it means that they're there are followers that are liking those photos and showing, hey, we enjoy this content you're putting out. So I think the people that have more skin in the game or more influential platforms on social media, they could actively, without shaming, because I don't think shame should enter the realm of social media, but or effective communication. But I think that if they're vocally promoting a different ethic, a different way to use your catch, a different way to enjoy the ocean, it will naturally take the limelight off of those dock of death photos, because all of these newer Spearos that are coming in are like, oh, well, this guy I look up to says that's dumb. Which, by the way, those photos are hilarious because, it takes so much time to line up those fish perfectly in lines on the front of your boat. And from a food perspective, fish protein, it goes bad the fastest out of all proteins, and it goes bad very quickly in sunlight. So the first thing I think of when I see those images is like, dude, you're ruining the shelf life of your catch. It's hilarious.
I don't understand why other Spearos like death piles, because for me personally, on a selfish level, I look at it and I go, well, there's 25 fish that I could have shot. You know what I mean? Like not all of them at once, probably like they've gone out and done, but like I look at it and I just go, they've taken just so much of the resource out in one time. But I mean, I get it, because sometimes you do go on a meat run, and there's a time and a place for it. But I don't know how to advertise it.
Well, I think another thing that we should do, especially in just when you see one of those photos, context is very important too, because is it a charter that is promoting those things to say, hey, my business does well and I would like to have more clients? If that's the case, I think there are other ways to communicate that. You can just talk fish numbers if you want, or something, I don't know how you go around it off the top of my head, but I just think taking that into it is how big was the group of divers? What's your motivation for posting it? And those are the things before we want to formulate opinions and shame someone or bash someone on what they're posting. We should really understand it. And then have, like you said, a plan for communicating with those people. I think we should take an active role to help steer them to a different method of communication, and an active role in we who have influence to promote it actively.
Well, here's an idea for the charters. Spend a little bit more money on a decent camera and actually video them with a triple hookup, because, if they're line fishing, for example, and then, chat with one person holding up their best fish of the day and just get a paragraph of text out of them. Make that your social media post.
100%. We actually were just on a charter down in San Diego, Zenmar, earlier this year. And their whole purpose is to, yes, they're a spearfishing charter, but their whole purpose is to have an enjoyable time from the moment you leave the dock to the moment you get back. And so they're cooking for you out on the water. We slept on the boat. And we go onto the land and play around. You can go surf, you could do a lot of different things. And I love the ocean enjoyment aspect that that they're promoting. I think that's a really good format.
Awesome, Eric. Can you just share with people a little bit about where they can come and find you and connect with you?
Yeah, sure. Personally, I'm the Keenaroo on social media, but more importantly, I'd love it if you went and checked out finandforage.com. We're on all the social media channels, YouTube, and we consistently put out what we try to have as major helpful articles or blogs or videos to make you a better diver, safer diver, or more confident in the kitchen. Even exploring the world of coastal foraging, because there's a lot of ways to collect delicious food other than just shooting a fish.
I love it, man. It's a beautiful website to navigate. The image is just awesome there. It's inspiring all on its own. So finandforage.com. I'd encourage everyone to go and check that out as well, because I'm enjoying it myself. All right, Eric, cool. Thanks. Great for catch up today, man.
All right, man. Good to talk to you again.
So a bit of a longer chat there with Eric. Really like him. Really like what he's doing over at Fin and Forage. Had some cool points. What did you think, Simon?
Look, so the stages. We've got the beginner stage that I want to shoot a fish. The bagging out stage, I want to shoot lots of fish. The trophy stage, I want to shoot the biggest fish. And then we've got the method stage here that I want to improve my gear and my skill. So that's stage 4. Got 2 more stages. Stage 5 is the sportsman stage, where I just like spearfishing. It seems to be sort of Eric's mojo at the moment. And stage 6 is the statesman stage that I mentioned to you before. I want to give back to the environment and my tribe. So we've got 6 stages. But in saying that, if they're fluid, they're not fixed. You can jump from one to the other at any stage. So it's not labeling anyone. So fascinating that he's brought that up and sees it like that, of just enjoyment, having fun, which is what it's about. And his perspective is cool, and context. And we've heard context in lots of chats. And the guys I spoke to today, who I admire and revere, and they're all ages, they're all about context, the legalities, the respect of the fish. Is it ethical? Or even if it's legal, is it ethical? Is it right to show that photo?
One of the other points he made too was like, you know, you've spent 10 or 15 minutes arranging these fish into these really elaborate sort of setups for some huge photo. And that 15 minutes in the hot sun on the, you know, like on the tar and cement, like you've done nothing for the eating quality of, you know, however many fish it is that you've just laid out.
True. And then remember, these guys normally have a comb in their wetsuit as well that they pull out to brush over, right?
All right. Hey, just conscious this time, Simon, it's getting late down there in Sydney and your lovely wife's been incredibly patient. Let's head off to our last voice message. This bloke's name's Ed Martin. He's been a long-time patron. He's the builder of Killshot Spear Guns. I really like what he had to say about death poles, and I thought this voicemail was a really nice way to wrap out this episode. As usual, though, for everyone that listens to the podcast, if you want to connect with the Noob Spearo on a deeper level, join the Noob Spearo community group on Facebook. We've got a couple of fantastic moderators on there who, Kurt and Ben, who are helping me out just to run a fantastic group. And the conversation on there is rich. It's vibrant. It's a safe place to have controversial opinions on everything and just have a real good, robust discussions. If you want to support the show on a deeper level, you can always become a patron at patreon.com/Noob Spearo. But here we go. Let's dig into Ed Martin's voice message. He's another bloke that I've just got a blossoming bromance with. So here we go with Ed Martin.
Hey, Shrek, this is Ed at Killshot Spear Guns, bringing you greetings from sunny Florida. Hopefully you guys are nice and safe down there south of the equator. I haven't seen anything crazy in the news. So Dock of Death, boy, there's a hot one. First of all, I think I got to point out, I've done it. I think most of us have probably posted a photograph where there's a couple dozen fish laying on the deck or laying on a cutting board or something like that. And we're kind of showing off how well we did. But I also think that most of us have outgrown those kinds of photographs. And I've certainly never, I don't even think I've taken as many fish as I've ever seen on those boats in a single day. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And, talking about not making sense. So social media is kind of a little echo chamber, There's very little context that is put with a lot of these photographs. Hey, me and the boys had a great day spearfishing. And then there's 2 million fish laying there. Or, we got our multi-day limit. It invites a lot of questions. And I think anybody that's critical of spearfishing, they just got all the justification they needed to hate us all. So I don't really think those photographs serve a good purpose. That being said, I live in a country where our very first constitutional amendment is the right to free speech. And I believe that everybody ought to be able to post whatever the hell they want. Now, when you post something like that, though, you have opened yourself up to criticism and me to reply back because I have the right to free speech as well. Now, typically, though, I'm not going to attack somebody in the comments. If I find something that I don't really like, oftentimes I'm going to try to coach them through direct messaging instead. And oftentimes I'll even invite them to have a phone call just so that I can get a little bit of context. It's one of those things. It's really hard for me to be a dick to somebody when they're when I'm talking directly to them. And it's very difficult for them to be that way too. And it's very difficult to convey emotion via the written word, particularly, in 15, 20 words or less. So, it doesn't really lend itself to emotion. So what's the real reason I don't like these photos? Be quite honest. It makes it very easy for people to use them as justification to increase regulation or to just outright ban spearfishing. Last year, they tried to stop spearfishing in all of Biscayne Bay up south of Miami, and they were using photographs like that to make their case. So just think about that for a few minutes. Shrek, that's what I've got. Take it for what it's worth.
Hey, mate, you finished on a good one there. Actually, they've all been insightful. Again, recurring themes.
Yeah.
But that was very, very cool what he said there. What did you get out of that?
Yeah, again, like you said, recurring themes. I just thought he wrapped it up really nicely. I agree with Ed's sentiment 100%. There's another guy, he didn't send me a voice message, but he sent a lot of comments, and it was, again, around the same themes. It was about, hey, guys, provide some context and some education around these death piles if you're going to post them. Make sure people understand, the process and how you got to this photo, because without context, it's awful. Another thing Charles sort of said was, he believes in a freedom of speech, and I don't want to be some thought police prick that's sitting up there on my whole horse determining what people can and can't do either. But I definitely want to encourage people to think and be more intentional about their spearfishing. I think Ed was the same, and he drew some really neat parallels there to some issues that are happening in his area that could potentially lock spearfishing out. And that's a powerful, powerful reason not to share these photos. It's probably the most, as far as I'm concerned. But everyone has their own opinion on it, and I was just stoked we got to have this conversation, Simon.
Yeah. Cheers, Shrek. I'm very passionate about it. I regularly see these type of things brought up, and or on an individual species as well, or a particular marine, creature that gets speared for food, and someone posts it up. And the death pile or an individual fish, whether it's size or not, or rarity, scarcity, man, and there's a case for and there's the case against, and like he said there at the end there, like, you've got to understand, you've got a right to express that, and you've got to, someone else has got a right to express their displeasure with it. Conversation often over the phone or face to face can often fix that. But it's always going to go on, man. And this is what I mean. And a couple of other guys have said it, that I don't think it's ever going to stop, but maybe that we can educate people sooner rather than them taking years and years to understand. They get it done in just a few photos.
That's a good note, and a note of hope to end on, that perhaps we're all helping each other and we're growing this international. It's an international spearfishing community these days. Social media has made it so. And I just sort of think it's got its good points in terms of learning from each other, and maybe this is just something that we can all think a little bit more intentionally about, and bring the next generation through with eyes wide open, more informed than we were when we started.
Mate, I really appreciate you inviting me on here to discuss this. Thank you. It's been great. And I want you a little black book of all your contacts around the world, mate, when I go to
You're more than welcome to it, Simon. Simon, where can people find you? You run spearfishing courses. You don't like self-promotion, so I'll do it for you. You teach awesome spearfishing courses. You've got a couple of spearfishing workshops. They're some of the only ones run in the country. Where can people come and find out about that these days?
spearfishingacademy.com.au. So I've finally got a website up. I've been word of mouth for so long, but I've been really busy. It's been great. I'm putting lots of smiles on people's faces, and just there's another recurring theme there: enjoyment. I'm just taking guys out just to have fun and enjoy it. No, not putting anything on anybody. Just get out there, enjoy your dive. We'll work on your technique, get you diving safely, and hunting a little bit smarter, and hopefully catch a nice fish for dinner. Cheers, man. I appreciate that.
Simon. Well, thanks for chatting to me about death piles. Dock of Death. We're over and out. Thanks, man.
Yeah, man. Ciao.
Guys, massive episode today. Really wanted to thank Simon Trippe and all of the Patron listeners and other people that submitted voice messages and contributed to this discussion. Huge thanks to all of you guys that got involved, and just, I felt like we had a really well-rounded and vibrant discussion about this topic. I hope it's given you some ideas and some food for thought. If you want to get involved in the discussion, I would encourage you to do so on the Noob Spearo community on Facebook. If you want to find that today, go to noobspearo.com/deathpile, and in that I'll link up the Noob Spearo community on Facebook. There will be a thread in there just discussing this thing. I'd love to hear your thoughts and more right there at the Noob Spearo community on Facebook. Again, if you love the podcast, come and sponsor us. Jump on patreon.com/noobspearo. If you're a listener and you love listening, I'd encourage you to do so, that you can support us on an episode-by-episode basis. I try and use all of that funds to get out, come do spearfishing trips, meet listeners, and do some live interviews. Anyway, that's it for me today. Hope you enjoyed it. Shrek out. Australia Spearfishing are today's proud sponsor of the Spearo podcast. They stock a huge range of equipment that you can find in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and now Perth. That's right, spearfishing.com.au have got a huge range of gear. I encourage you to get along. Use the code Spearo, NOOBSPEARO, and save yourself $20 on every purchase over $200 when you shop online. Neptonics.com, speargun hardware specialists, proud partners of the Spearo podcast. They make, design and manufacture some of the best gear to land your fish of a lifetime. Visit Neptonics.com, use the code NOOB10, NOOB10. So visit Neptonics.com, use the code NOOB10 to save 10% off store-wide.